You're listening to Permission to Shine, the podcast by Sherisse Bisram. The Oxford Dictionary describes permission as the action of officially allowing someone to do a particular thing, consent, authorization. What if you were that someone and you gave yourself the permission to be everything you wanted to be and more? No more playing small and accepting less than. You are worthy of the life of your dreams, regardless of what it is that you've been through. And honestly, it's exactly what you've been through that has shaped you into the version of yourself that you are now. Like a diamond, you've endured so much, but instead of breaking, you have become stronger and brighter. And if that's not a reason to shine, then I don't know what is. And if nature can do it, then why the hell can't you? You are brave, you are strong, you are powerful, and you are enough. Hear my call and give yourself the permission to shine, because you don't realise how many people are inspired by your light. Like, share, follow, subscribe, and listen out for more. Stay tuned. Hi, thank you for coming to my very first podcast episode. My name is Sherisse Bisram and I'm a self-love and empowerment mentor and facilitator. And I'm just really excited to share with you today, especially my journey, my struggles, and my story of overcoming, because really my story in itself is the whole reason why I do the work that I do now. And really for the reason for the sharing the podcast, because I think a lot of us are suffering or have suffered with something, a story of some kind that shaped us into the person we are now. And it's that story and that version of ourselves now, the what's made us this. That is beautiful in itself, but being able to shine in this space where you've overcame everything that you've been put through and all of that stuff, it's really powerful. And I didn't realize that was my superpower, and now I do. I'm just letting my light shine out into the world, and I'm hoping that you feel inspired to do the same. So here we are. Let's go. So a bit about me. So if you do know me already, you may know me as being a professional dancer and a dance teacher, and or you see me on socials and things like that, and all the other parts of life as in social media and all that stuff. But what I've been more aware of, and like I said, this whole journey thing, this is really where my life has shifted, because if you followed me before the pandemic, you would know that I was a full-time professional dancer. That was all I was doing. I was all hands on deck, and I like to say that I can acknowledge now that I lived a very toxically masculine life in terms of, gunning forward at 100 miles an hour. That was my way of being. That was everything that I was doing, was just, full steam ahead. Whereas the pandemic, obviously, like most people, just forced us to stop, didn't it? Forced us in our tracks to be like, what do we do now? So I hit that wall and I was like, okay, what do I want to be? What do I want to do? And my whole life as a dancer, I always wanted to move to America. I wanted to move to LA and do the commercial dance thing out there. And I think in the pandemic, I really had a word with myself about that, because I was like, is that actually really what I want? Or was that the old version of me that hadn't done the work and the healing? Is that what she wanted? And all of this came into light. And what I realized is, I didn't feel like I fit there anymore, like as a dancer. I didn't feel like that was all I was supposed to be. I think I've always known that there was something inside of me that wanted more for myself, but dance was a beautiful outlet for me to express myself and to just share again a bit of my light with people. And I've really enjoyed doing that, and dance is still a massive part of my life. But I guess in the pandemic I really had to face my demons, and I'll go into that now really from the beginning, because it'll make sense if we start from day one really. So growing up, I lived in a predominantly white area, so obviously racism was a massive part of like my life, and just something I didn't endure, because I think even from a young age I've always known that I wasn't that person that was gonna stand for anything. Like, I just feel like anyone that makes a comment, like a rude comment or, horrible bullying, that kind of thing, anything like that's always stopped with me. I never wanted that person to keep doing the same toxic patterns. I always wanted to stop it in its tracks. Even at a young age, I knew that. So, anytime anyone said anything to me, I was straight away like, watch your mouth, what you're saying, all that stuff. Always been really just like, protected myself, protected people around me. And it makes sense really, because in my internal world, in my family home, that was something I was being faced with all the time. So My father was an alcoholic, and with that, obviously, addiction, if for anyone that knows, and for anyone that doesn't, like, it takes over their life, it consumes them, so they're no longer the person that you wanted them to be, or you would expect a father to be. It was we were always rowing, the household, anyone needed something, you had to row about it. And obviously with that comes like mental abuse, physical abuse, all of those things that I witnessed growing up. And yeah, it was difficult, I would say, and I didn't acknowledge it was difficult until later in the pandemic when I went back. So that's why this all ties in, because I think when we're in a problem or we're in a situation, we actually don't always see it as a problem or a situation. Now, it depends on your personality type, but me personally, I've always felt a bit like this isn't, I just get through it. Yeah, like, so I'm not taking it on face value of what it is right now in front of me. I'm like, I've just got to get through to the other side of this. And that's exactly really what my childhood was. I had a lot of responsibility because where obviously my dad was an alcoholic, my mum was then working full time, and then really that equaled to emotionally unavailable parents. So I stepped into that role, and yeah, didn't really get much of a childhood now I think about it. And I really do empathize with myself now, because I think, like I said, that was just normal. I just thought that was reality. And yeah, now I can look back and, I have shed a few tears over it, which I never did at the time. And then on top of all of that stuff, so obviously the racism, that was in the external world, and obviously the family home. On top of that, as I got into my teens, I had, between the ages of 12 to 17, had 11 members of my family die back to back. Not for any like freak accident or anything like that. It was just, lots of relatives. I'm ethnic minority, so we have lots of relatives, and yeah, just different reasons they just passed away. And I think that was really again another experience where I armored up. So obviously I've armored up to protect myself from the outside world, from the inside world, and then every funeral I went to, I just added another layer of armor. And this is a thing, right? I say this all the time, but people always say, "Oh, be strong with your family," or "Be strong," like this in funerals. Don't be strong. Word of advice, just don't. Because I literally took that as a literal fact and just added on more layers of armor onto my life. And I was like, la, 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 okay, I'm going to just push forward now and keep going. Because, yeah, I think another reason why I kept going forward as well was because I never felt seen and heard. Obviously, inevitably, like I had to row my way to being seen and heard in any situation. And I just felt like people didn't believe in me. I didn't really have that support that was cheering me on. It was always like I had to do the thing first to then gain the support, which is fine. And, it is what it is. But I think that's another reason why I've always had this toxic attitude, because it was for validation, really. I think I wanted to be validated in the end of everything. Which is, yeah, it's sad, really, isn't it? But it is what it is, and it shaped me because, I feel like I've overcome so many obstacles because I kept pushing forward. I feel like if I sat back and let it overcome, it would have consumed me. And on a few occasions where I've kind of been faced with my demons, I have reached really low lows, and it's okay, like, and I've made it through every time. And I think that's been the real shaping of me. So I don't take anything away from it, but it is part and parcel of who I am. And that's absolutely okay to understand that and accept that for myself. So yeah, I got to through the bereavements, and yeah, I was at uni studying dance, all of this lovely stuff, and then I come out into the dance world, and again, like, I'm kind of faced with similar blocks, really. Like, my body shape isn't right, I'm not the right height, my skin color's not right for the thing, or my body shape being curvy was an issue. And again, facing limitations on I guess what society deems as acceptable. I've always say that I never fit into a box. I've always kind of been my own Sherisse shaped thing in the corner, just do my own thing. But equally, I have tried to mold myself into these boxes over the years. And I feel like when I got to that point where in my career, I'd tried to do a few jobs and I'd gone abroad and they'd ended up being awful. I came back and I was devastated, and I was like, what do I do now? Because this is my love. This is my passion. Like, dance has always been, an outlet for me, and that was the space where I felt seen and heard. It was dancing, right? And it wasn't just all dance, it was street dance in particular, and like hip hop and those kind of genres. And I, at this point where I'd come back from this job away, and it was like musical theatre and things like that, which isn't my forte, I was like, cool, I know what I need to do now is street dance. Now, obviously I had a mental breakdown in between that, so don't get that twisted. That did come. And I got to face a lot of emotions then. And I think actually that was probably the start of my almost healing journey to a very surface level extent. Like I started meditating at that point. I started journaling again. And actually I've always journaled, to be honest. Like I think from a young age, one of my aunties bought me a journal, and then since then I was like doing Dear Diary. Do you know what I mean? As I got older, I stopped doing the Dear Diary part and just kept like offloading my day, which I think again just helped me out, because I say now, like, we need a mental outlet and a physical outlet. And I feel like I was always getting that, just like subliminally. That was always in my reality, which was lovely, because I think it is in the consistency that we can overcome anything. It's like if you're learning something new, like a language, the more you do something, the better you get at it, right? And that's the same with dancing, same with healing. So yeah, I guess when I chose to get back into doing the thing I loved, that's when my career started to open up for me. And like so much shifted in this time. And I felt like I was in alignment with, where I wanted to be, what I wanted my whole life in terms of my dance career and all these beautiful things. But I guess if I'm honest, I did probably feel a little bit numb still, like something didn't quite sit right. And I feel like I was in a stage where I was in so much burnout because I was just working like all the time, full out, like I was literally doing like 4 or 5 jobs a day and going from one place to the other, and it was full on. It was a lot. And I just lived like that, and I could acknowledge now that for a good 5 years I would say I was in constant burnout. And I'm fully aware that being in burnout, childhood trauma, societal expectations, all of these things led me to be toxically masculine, but also quite aggressive and maybe not necessarily a nice person to be around all the time. And I can really acknowledge that now 100%. But I think because I've always felt quite isolated in how I had to live my life, not that I didn't have lots of great friends, because I really do, and I've got great family as well, but I think healing and life and things like that, if you don't share how you're feeling really and truly, it'll always feel quite lonely and isolating. And that's something that I've really have learned. And I guess, yeah, like we come over to the pandemic, my career's going well, everything's going great, boom, pandemic hits. And I think, well, I say my career was going great. Obviously, I was acknowledging the fact that something felt a little bit empty, and it was okay, but I didn't know anything else, so that's it. We only measure anything based on our own experiences and our own understanding of something. So because I'd never felt like a real deep win, I didn't know what a deep win was, or that I wasn't experiencing it, but I know something felt off. And yeah, in the pandemic, I guess I hit that wall and I had to question again, like, is this all there is for me in terms of dance and my life? And I've always known that there was something about me that was different, even from a young girl. Like, I think I always dreamt of more, wanting more, feeling more, being more. And I felt like dance was that for me. But actually, when I realized on such a deep layer, it's who I am as a person. Now, that may sound a bit arrogant to a lot of people. And it's really not. That is the purest act of self-love, is to identify your strengths and weaknesses and to like fully adopt them into your being. Like, like I've endured a lot in my lifetime, and I know a lot of people have. It doesn't have to break you, it can make you, and it can define you. And I feel like that's really, again, why I have this platform and this podcast, this permission to shine, is because I gave myself that permission to shine. And in that pandemic was when I had like everything came to a blow, like it was Saturn return. My Saturn return was there. I had I was coming up to turning 30, which obviously all tied into that. I had a spiritual awakening. It was all tied into this experience of turning 30. And like that all sounds like, oh, cool. It wasn't cool. It was not cool. It was a dark night of the soul moment. And I literally became so aware of so many things that I was doing, like, because I'd armored up my whole life. I realized that I hadn't been able to let any of the emotions I'd had in my body for the last 29 years out, let alone let anyone in. So I was struggling in relationships and things like that. And funny enough, I've always had really great friendships, but even that came to a blow in the lockdown. And I do actually owe it to my auntie, and I always shout her out because it is this conversation I had with her. And I was just coming out of seeing a guy, and I was like confused of why it was not worked, or like he was trying to be vulnerable and I was like cringed out by it. And she said to me, the problem is you've never been vulnerable. She was like, you spent your whole life becoming strong physically and mentally because you've always had to. And I was like, whoa, mic drop moment. And that was where I really started to do the work into vulnerability and understanding that. So I had a few months of getting started on that journey. And then in the mix of that, and then the pandemic getting longer, I was like, okay, right, what am I going to do with my career now? So I decided to go back to uni and do my master's. Now, it'd been 10 years. So that in itself was a challenge, like, how do you write an essay again? Do you know what I mean? Like, and now it's easier because there's so much like digital things to help you. And when I was doing my BA, my degree, my just normal degree, I was handwriting my bibliography. I was like, what? So much has changed. It's crazy, like, but in the beautiful way. And it was, really nice to connect with, younger people again and be in that space. Obviously, I taught the whole way through all of this. My career, I've always taught, and it was a really nice moment for me. And I think the masters really did shape my career going forward now, because I really saw that I have a real way with people. And I've always known that, but I don't think I was ever shown it, and I feel like in that master's, I kind of did step into that mentor role, and it was so natural for me. And I was like, okay, so this is where maybe a business is forming, right? And, but, again, with the shadow side of things, as I'm progressing through this master's degree, it's, I started to do some research and some case studies on how dance has affected people in care. And, I came across some research, and it was basically talking about childhood trauma, and it became a little bit too familiar. Some of the things I was reading, I was like, oh, that sounds kind of familiar. And that's trauma. Oh, that's trauma. I was like, oh, what? Like, you're just confused about all this stuff. And I was like, and then I did the ACEs test. So if anyone knows what the ACEs test is, it's adverse childhood experiences. And I filled it out and I got 8 out of 10. And I was like, wow, okay, looks like I've got childhood trauma. So then again, I'm diving into another depth of my soul in a different area to understand myself. And I feel like in that process that was very difficult, very painful, and very hard, I swam to the right bottom of my soul in every part of me, like understanding like why I am the way I am, and why I've adopted certain patterns, and like what is the trauma cycles and where's that come from, and is there history of that in my family and my lineage. And I just really decided that I didn't want to be any of those things anymore. So I unlearned all of those layers, all of those layers of armoring that I'd carried my whole life. I took them off. And then I got to really unpackage myself and be like, do I want to keep that narrative or not? Is that who I am? And this is where this deep dive of understanding and learning came in. And then I've really built myself back up on just self-worth, self-acceptance, self-knowledge, and self-compassion, really. And that's why I have such a deep self-love. And I would say I feel so confident and empowered is because I know myself so much, 100%. And I've kind of adopted these tools along the way, And, my tools that I've used, again, surface level throughout my life, but now in the deep dives, they were so imperative, like meditation, journaling. I'll tell you what, the real like pinnacle of the pandemic was I did a breathwork meditation. And I don't know if anyone's done breathwork before, but it's life-changing. And I basically shifted so much energy, and it was a childhood healing one, which again, the universe aligned you in crazy ways, right? And I breathed out, I sobbed the whole way through, like really like sobbing. And I managed to clear my IBS. I'd had IBS for like, my life, and it went, and I didn't realize it was linked to trauma. So it's so funny, like throughout this healing journey, everything relates. Now, this is just a nutshell of my life, and I will have guests on every week, as well as me talking, some certain episodes as well. So more of my journey will unravel, but this is just the nutshell of basically how I've got to become the person I am now, and why empowerment and why confidence building, because it's everything I am. And I think for me, as I said, dance was always one string to my bow, whereas the empowerment and the confidence building, the mental health, the self-love, that is who I am, like dance was the ego, was the outlet. and this is the me, the being. And I guess it's kind of like that feminine masculine energy almost, you know, and that's been something I've really worked on, you know, in that process of unpacking the toxic masculinity. It's like, how do I then, you know, make peace with the feminine energy? And that's really been my journey. And I would say that I spent probably the last 2 years trying to eradicate the masculine energy, not realizing that we need both. And it seems so obvious, but when you've lived in one way completely the other direction, you try to then go that direction, and actually you just got to meet in the middle and create this beautiful synergy, which is what I feel like I'm doing now. You know, I've overcome so much. I've moved leaps and bounds away from where I was, but I equally understand that healing is a journey and it's not linear. So every time I'm faced with obstacles in my life, now I've developed tools to get me through these situations. I get through it easier every time. And this is everything I practice and everything that I teach to everyone I'm around all the time in all of my workshop talks and, you know, programs. This is the core of it. It's like giving you the tools to be able to move through your life in an easier way, and knowing that when the hard times come, you can overcome them because you've done it already and you know you can do it again. I think this society and like this modern day, we think that everything should be done and over with really easy, and everything should be yeah, like there should, like, we shouldn't feel that way, or you should always feel happy or whatever. But life is like seasons, you know, like I would say that we, you know, the spring is where things start to bloom and blossom. The ideas that we've had, you know, like things start to come into fruition, and like we get to be excited about what we're creating. And then summer, everything blooms fully. It's fully bloomed. You have like the most like best time. You feel the best about yourself. You might be in deep love and everything's amazing. And then in the autumn, things start to, you know, maybe lose their momentum a little bit. Maybe things feel a bit difficult, a bit hard. Maybe things are not going the way you planned. And then in the winter, it's like complete shut off. Like maybe we need that dark night of the soul. Maybe we need to recuperate and rest. We go internally, ready to start for spring again. And that's how our emotions work. That's how nature works. And we're so in tune with that. You know, I'm like super spiritual. And you know, if you're not super spiritual, just, you know, take whatever I say with what you know, take what resonates, basically. Don't yeah, you don't have to believe what I'm saying word for word. And I think that for anything in life, you know, like anything anyone is telling you word for word, if it doesn't feel right to you, you can absolutely just, you know, not take that on board. You're a human being, and that's where discernment comes in, which again isn't really taught, but discernment is your choice on whether you want to believe that or not. And I guess it's more of an evolved version of judgment, like discernment. So that's a little bit of a dictionary. Well, it's not a dictionary, it's my variation. I forgot to say at the beginning of this, I'm really sorry that I've got a weird sense of humor, so you are going to see that it's going to come out throughout this. For anyone that's danced with me, you'll know that full well that I yeah, I'm a little bit of a crazy bean, but you know, it is what it is. And again, you know, if you can't laugh about life, then you're just going to cry, aren't you? Which again is something that I didn't really do for 10 years of my life. So here we are, embracing emotions and all that jazz. So yeah, that is a nutshell of my story. And yeah, I just want to give like some tools and some things that have helped me for the end of this kind of wrap up. And then yeah, we'll be done for the episode. So on that note, I'm going to give you what I have used, and this is what I teach. So I say that we need two forms of outlets in our life. We need a mental outlet and we need a physical outlet. So a mental outlet could be anything from talking to friends, talking to someone that you trust, always someone you trust with these emotions, always. If you haven't got someone to talk to, you can voice note yourself and delete it. You can just get it out of your body somewhere, or you can write it down. Now, pen and paper is like writing pen to paper. There's something so spiritually connected to that. It's all a tune. So when you write down the things that you have in your mind, they get out of your body. And that's basically what happens with our minds. When we're in overwhelm and in burnout, we have 1,000 tabs open. So it's almost like when you take that bit of information from out of your head and you either put it on paper or you speak it out, it's out of your mind, and then you get freedom in your brain. And that's where you have space to grow and flourish. Ideas come through, you know, if you're looking for that kind of thing. But equally, it gives you peace. You know, that's the ultimate thing, is we all deserve peace, right? And I spent so long not having that when I had that for the first time, I was like, oh gosh, I'm not overthinking everything. This is amazing. And then the physical outlet Can be anything from just going for a walk, going for a run, a jog, swimming, hiking, whatever it is your thing is, dancing. Again, like for me, you don't have to be a professional at any of these things. You know, walking in nature is such a beautiful thing. And like if you walk in between the trees, they're so interconnected that the trees actually absorb some of your overwhelm. So when you come out of it, you end up feeling a lot lighter. So give that a try and see if that works. And also, you know, dancing is just what our soul's meant to do. You know, look at babies, right? They hear a song and they just start moving. It's part of who you are. You know, whether you think you can dance or not, put a song on and just move around. It's your life and your body, and you deserve to like feel and embrace every part of you. You know, when you say, oh, I can't dance or I can't do that, you're shaming yourself. You don't need to shame yourself over this, especially in the comfort of your own space where no one's watching. You know, that dance like no one's watching comes for a reason. And it is all about releasing those endorphins and just feeling good in who you are, in what you are. And we all deserve to feel that way. Because what happens physically to our body when we experience anxiety is we experience a knot in our chest or in our stomach, you know, like it's connected in those two spaces. So when we actually move our body, that ball of like pent up energy gets to dissipate, and then eventually it releases. So if you've released your mind so it's clear and your body's clear, the freedom that you'll experience is like a breath of fresh air in your body, in your lungs, in every part of you. And you just deserve to feel like that. You know, I think as I've said over and over again, we deserve to feel in flow, in ease. And I think society makes us feel like we've got to work really hard, we've got to push to the bone, we've got to grind. That is so outdated. You do not have to feel that way. Now, don't get me wrong. Anything worth having, you have to put the work in. You've got to work towards it. You've got to be consistent. Don't get me wrong. But when you're in that flow of doing the thing, like, you know, for me, dance training or, you know, going to the gym, weight training, whatever it is that you feel like you want to do because you know what the end result is, that is always worth it. Like I always say with my healing journey, you know, like the consistency is like an uphill climb of like, you know, meditating every day, journaling every day, letting out my emotions, processing things. It's always an uphill climb. But I tell you what, the view from the top of where I'm standing now is worth every single thing that I've ever done, because I know the alternative. I can look down at that version of myself, that old version of myself that was in her masculine energy, constantly burnt out, short and abrupt with people. You know, that version of myself, that doesn't exist anymore in my reality. This version of me now, this peaceful version of me that feels so in line with her purpose and with connecting with people and speaking from my soul or my heart space, this version of me is worth every single early morning to do my morning routine and like going to bed that little bit late to do my bedtime routine, because I know that it's worth it, and you are worth it, and you are worth your time and energy and all of these processes. And I just think that if you're in a space where, you know, you never thought about healing, or maybe you've got no trauma, you don't think it, there's always something more that we can do to better ourselves. And this is the thing, right? Like if you're someone that questions yourself, you know, like if you think, oh, should I do that? Should I not? Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. That's you doubting you. You know, you don't need to doubt you. Trust that you'll always get there and you'll always do the thing. And like, you know, if you're looking in your mirror and judging yourself and not looking and seeing something beautiful or amazing or whatever, you know, that's you again judging yourself. And that's a limiting belief that needs to be unpacked. So the work I do is so broad. It's not just trauma related, you know, like I can help everyone and anyone with whatever you want. So yeah, please do feel to reach out if you need to. You need this support. So yeah, that's my outlets. And yeah, I guess really what I'm gonna do a segment, it's called Soul to Soul, and it's gonna just be kind of like what I just feel like you might need to hear right now. And I just feel like when we truly know who we are, when we accept ourselves fully, when we are in line with everything and it all makes sense, that is where the real beauty is. And that's where you deserve to live your whole life. And I think there's a lot of us that are just adopted this idea of playing small. You don't need to play small. You can take up space, and you deserve to take up space. You know, you deserve to be heard. You deserve to be seen in all your glory. And that really is the most important thing in life, you know, to feel seen, heard, and understood. And I just want you to know how amazing you are. And I always say, you know, affirmations have single-handedly changed my subconscious mind. So I do, I hope that in time, especially with listening to my podcast, you will adopt more ways of just changing your life in a really positive way. But I'm going to give you some affirmations for today, and you can make your own up. You can use this as an example, but I want you to know that you are brave, you are strong, you are powerful, you are enough, and you are worthy of your dreams 1000%. And I always say that you are the only you there is, and that is your superpower. And as I said, that little light inside of you, let it burn bright. You deserve to shine unapologetically and fully. And as I say, like when you shine your light so bright, you don't realize how many people you're inspiring by just being who you are. We are a mirror of everything in our entire universe. So if you feel this way about you, on the outside world, you're going to see that, and it's going to shine, and you're just going to be filled with so much light in your life. And we all deserve to be in that space where we are just in this beautiful divine light. And yeah, I just want you to know that. And I hope you have a great day, whatever you're doing. I'm going to have some guests on coming up, so I'm really excited to share that with you. Some really people that I value in my life that have some beautiful words of wisdom and knowledge to just share with you. And yeah, more than anything, I hope that sharing my story makes you brave enough to share yours, and just know that your vulnerability will be well received, and people will love you for it and accept you for it. Because I think a lot of the time we feel like our story is shameful, and it's not at all. It's the very making of us. That's the endurance and the processes to make that diamond inside of you shine. So yes, lots of love, and I look forward to connecting with you. My socials will always be in the details below. I've got details of my journal below and my upcoming programs. Please connect with me on social media. I'd love to talk with you. I'd love to hear what you thought. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all at Sherisse_Bisram, and my website is www.sherisebisram.com. But yeah, just remember how beautiful you are and how powerful you are, and give yourself the permission to shine. Just to finish off today's episode, I wanted to give you a little glossary section, especially because I was talking quite freely like I would do with a friend in a conversation, but I felt like it was quite nice to give you a little bit of clarity on some of the things I was speaking about. So I speak often about polarity and feminine and masculine energy. And what I mean by that is basically all of us, every single human being is made up of that energy, whatever you identify as, and it's opposites. So for me, for example, I talk about toxic masculinity, and that is obviously going outside of the comfortable bracket of masculine energy. It's pushing far past it. So that's that section. Then I also speak about positivity and negativity. I don't really speak about negativity, to be fair, but the positive part that I'm speaking about, there's a healthy, natural, authentic way of positive energy, which is like light energy. That's probably the best way to say it. And when I refer to it in society, what I mean by that is that it's in a toxic way. So in society, when I say they want it to be easy, they want this toxic positivity version. That's what I mean there. Because on the other hand, the juxtaposition of that is the fact that it's the toxic energy, the negative energy on the other side of that society thinks the only way we can have anything we deserve is to work really, really hard for it. And that's why people often get told that they're really lucky if something works out for them and all of that. So just thought I'd clear that up to make it really easy for you all. But thank you. Just to finish up. Permission to Shine with Sherisse Bisram, self-love and empowerment mentor and facilitator. To work with me, head to my website or my social media platforms. I offer sessions such as workshops in schools and workplaces. I deliver talks, and I also have programs available, and I'm available for one-to-one sessions on a 6-month, 3-month and 6-week basis. My work is all about taking you through the journey of self-discovery all the way to true, authentic confidence and empowerment, unlearning and dismantling all of your limiting beliefs, getting to the root of who you are inside and building you up on a foundation of self-worth, self-acceptance, self-awareness and deep self-love. You are the only you there is, and that is your superpower.